The war had lasted 300 years. 300 years of death, retreat, and loss. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of 12 spacefaring species, was losing. Everyone knew it. No one wanted to say it. Commander Thyra Velshin stood at the observation deck of her ship, the Swift Arrow. She watched the stars pass by and felt nothing but exhaustion. Her blue skin had grown pale from stress. Her 4 eyes, once bright with hope, now carried the weight of too many battles and too many dead friends. The Vreth Dominion was winning. They were not like other species. They did not think as individuals. They were a hive mind, millions of bodies controlled by a single vast intelligence. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. They consumed world after world, turning everything into more Vreth, and the Concord could not stop them. Thera had received new orders that morning. The High Council was desperate. They had tried everything. New weapons, new strategies, alliances with neutral species. Nothing worked. Now they were looking through ancient records, searching for anything that might help. And they had found something strange. The records spoke of a small planet in a distant arm of the galaxy, a world called Earth. The reports were very old, written by explorers who had visited the system thousands of years ago. They described Earth as a nightmare. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen. The temperature swung from burning hot to freezing cold. Predators hunted in every environment. Diseases filled the air and water. The explorers had called it a death world. Nothing intelligent could possibly survive there. They had written. The planet was quarantined and forgotten. That there was one small note at the end of the file. A single observation that the explorers had almost dismissed. They had seen something on the surface. Creatures that walked on 2 legs. Creatures that used tools. Creatures that looked up at the stars. The High Council did not believe intelligent life could exist on such a world. But they were desperate. So they sent Thyra to check. Her crew was nervous. They had all heard stories about death worlds. Planets where the very environment tried to kill you. Some believed that if anything did live on Earth, it would be monsters. Savage beasts with no capacity for reason or civilization. Thyra did not know what to believe. She only knew her orders. The Swift Arrow dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of the Earth system. Thyra immediately noticed something wrong with the old reports. The quarantine beacons that had been placed thousands of years ago were dark and dead. Someone had destroyed them. Her sensor officer, a small furry creature named Kelix, made a sound of confusion. His screens were lighting up with readings that made no sense. "Commander," he said, his voice shaking, "there are structures on the 4th planet. And the 5th. And on many of the moons. There are ships moving through the system. Hundreds of them." Thyra felt her heart beat faster. "What kind of ships?" "Unknown design. They are crude compared to Concord vessels. But they are functional. And they are armed." Before Thora could respond, her communication officer spoke up. "We are being hailed, Commander. The signal is coming from Earth." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at Thera. She took a deep breath and gave the order. "Put it through." The screen flickered. And then Thera saw them for the first time. They were tall. Taller than most Concord species. They had only 2 eyes, set forward like a predator. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink. They had hair on their heads and faces. And they wore uniforms that looked military in nature. The one in the center spoke. Its voice was deep and confident. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered human space without authorization. Identify yourself and state your purpose, or you will be considered hostile." Thyra found her voice. "I am Commander Thyra Velshin of the Galactic Concord. We come in peace. We did not know this system was inhabited. There was a pause. The humans on the screen looked at each other. Then the one in the center spoke again. Galactic Concord? We have detected your signals for decades. We know there is a civilization out there. We have been waiting for someone to make contact. The human paused. My name is Admiral Jonah Reyes. Welcome to Earth, Commander. I think we have a lot to talk about. Over the next several days, Thyra and her crew were invited to Earth. What she saw there terrified and amazed her. The humans lived on their death world as if it was normal. They breathed the oxygen that would burn Allery lungs. They walked easily in gravity that would crush a calyx. They ate the flesh of other creatures that they had hunted and killed. They swam in water filled with salt and predators. They climbed mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. And they did all of this without fear. Thyra met with Admiral Reyes and a scientist named Dr. Amara Okonkwo. They were curious about the galaxy. They asked hundreds of questions. And when Thyra told them about the war with the Vreth, they grew very quiet. These Vreth, Admiral Reyes said slowly, they are conquering world after world? Yes, Thyra said. They cannot be stopped. We have tried everything. And you came here looking for help? Thyra hesitated. The High Council thought. They thought this world was dead. They did not expect to find a civilization. I do not know if you can help us. You have no experience with galactic warfare. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. She expected anger. Instead, Admiral Reyes smiled. It was a strange expression. His teeth showed, like a predator out to strike. Commander, he said, my species has been fighting wars since before we could write. We have fought each other across every piece of land, sea, and sky on our world. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and disasters that killed millions. We have split the atom and walked on our moon. He leaned forward. We may be new to the galaxy, but we are not new to war. Dr. Okonkwo nodded. The Vreth are coming whether we join you or not. If they consume the Concord, they will eventually reach Earth. We have no choice but to fight. Thyra looked at these strange creatures from the Death World. They did not seem afraid. They seemed eager, for the first time in many years. Commander Thyra Velshin felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The Concord capital station was called Haven. It floated in the center of a peaceful star system, far from the front lines of the war. Millions of beings from 12 different species lived and worked there. It was the heart of galactic civilization, and it had never seen anything like the humans. Admiral Jonah Reyes led the delegation. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. His eyes were calm but sharp, like he was always watching for danger. Beside him walked Dr. Amara Okonkwo, a woman with kind eyes and a brilliant mind. Behind them came 50 human soldiers in crisp uniforms, walking in perfect formation. Commander Thyra escorted them through the station. She had tried to prepare the Concord for this meeting, but nothing could truly prepare them. The first problem was the air. Humans breathed oxygen, a gas that was poisonous to half the species in the Concord. Special sealed environments had to be built just for them. When the Concord scientists studied the human atmosphere, they were horrified. Oxygen was corrosive. It caused metal to rust and organic matter to decay. And humans breathed it constantly, every moment of every day. The second problem was food. The Concord provided nutrition cubes, the standard food for all species. The humans politely refused. They had brought their own supplies. When a curious Allery scientist asked to see what humans ate, he nearly fainted. That is flesh, he whispered, staring at the meat on Admiral Reyes's plate. Beef, Reyes said calmly. From a cow, an animal we raise on Earth. You eat other creatures? We are omnivores. We eat plants and animals both. The scientist backed away slowly. Thyra had to explain to the humans that most Concord species were herbivores or absorbed nutrients from their environment. The idea of hunting, killing, and eating another creature was deeply disturbing to them. But the real shock came during the medical examinations. The Concord doctors wanted to understand human biology. What they found made them question everything they knew about life. Humans had endoskeletons, bones inside their bodies. These bones could break from impact or stress. But instead of dying, humans simply healed. The bones grew back together, sometimes stronger than before. The doctors found humans with dozens of healed fractures. They had broken their bodies and kept living. Humans also had something called an immune system. Their bodies were constantly at war with tiny invaders, bacteria, and viruses that tried to kill them from inside. Every human was a walking battlefield. And they survived. But the most terrifying discovery was adrenaline. When humans faced danger, their bodies released a chemical that increased their strength, speed, and endurance beyond normal limits. Their hearts beat faster. Their pain faded. Their fear transformed into aggression. They called it the fight or flight response. The Concord had never seen anything like it. Most species had evolved to avoid danger, to run, to hide, to surrender. Humans had evolved to face danger head-on and destroy it. They are not civilized beings, one council member whispered during a private meeting. They are predators wearing clothes. They are exactly what we need. Another replied. The High Council met with Admiral Reyes in the great chamber at the center of Haven. The 12 leaders of the Concord sat in a circle, representing species from across the galaxy. Some were tall and elegant like Thyra's people, the Allery. Others were small and quick like the furry Kelix. Some breathed methane. Some communicated through colors instead of sounds. All of them stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. The prime speaker, an ancient Varix with silver scales, addressed Admiral Reyes. "We thank you for coming," she said. "We understand that you wish to join our fight against the Wrath Dominion. But we must be honest with you. Your species has never fought in space. You have no fleet capable of matching Wrath vessels. Your weapons are primitive. Your experience is limited to wars on a single planet." Admiral Reyes listened patiently. His face showed no emotion. "We value your courage," the prime speaker continued. "But we cannot put untested forces on the front lines. We would like to offer you a support role, logistics, medical aid, rear guard positions. This will allow you to contribute while you learn the ways of galactic warfare." There was a long silence. Admiral Reyes looked around the chamber. Then he smiled that predator smile that Thyra had seen before. "We accept," he said simply. The council seemed relieved. Thyra felt a knot in her stomach. She had spent enough time with humans to know that smile meant something. After the meeting, she found Admiral Reyes standing alone on the observation deck, looking at the stars. "You accepted very easily," she said. "I expected you to argue." Reyes did not turn around. There was nothing to argue about. They offered us a position. We took it, a minor position. They did not believe you can fight. Now Reyes turned. His eyes were hard. "They will see what we can do soon enough. My people have a saying, Commander. Actions speak louder than words. We will prove ourselves on the battlefield, not in a council chamber." Thyra studied him carefully. "You are not offended that they think so little of you?" "I am used to being underestimated. My ancestors were underestimated many times throughout history. By empires, by tyrants, by enemies who thought they had already won." He turned back to the stars. "Those enemies do not exist anymore. My ancestors made sure of that." Before Thyra could respond, an alarm began to sound across the station. Red lights flashed. Voices called out in panic. A message appeared on every screen in Haven. The Vreth Dominion had launched a massive attack. Their target was Atheron Prime, the industrial heart of the Concord. Millions of workers lived there. The factories produced most of the Concord's weapons and ships. If it fell, the war was over. Every available ship was being called to defend it. Admiral Reyes watched the chaos around him. His expression did not change. He touched a device on his wrist and spoke calmly. "This is Admiral Reyes to all human forces. Prepare for deployment. We are going to war." He looked at Thera one last time. "Commander, I suggest you stay close to us. You are about to see something the galaxy has never seen before." Thyra did not know what he meant, but as she followed the humans toward their ships, she felt that strange feeling again, hope mixed with fear. The Battle of Atheron Prime began at dawn. Thyra watched from the command deck of the Swift Arrow as the Vreth fleet emerged from faster than light travel. There were thousands of ships. They blocked out the stars like a living shadow. And behind them came the troop carriers, each one filled with millions of Vreth soldiers. The Concord fleet moved to intercept. Energy weapons lit up the darkness of space. Ships exploded in bright flashes. For a few hours, it seemed like the Concord might hold. Then the Vreth ground forces landed. They came down in drop pods that burned through the atmosphere like meteors. Each pod carried hundreds of Vreth warriors. They were terrible to look at, creatures with black shells and too many limbs and eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. They moved as one, controlled by the hive mind, coordinated perfectly. The Concord soldiers on the ground were not prepared. The Allery were elegant and graceful, but they were not built for brutal combat. The Kellics were smart and quick, but they were small and easily overwhelmed. Species after species fell back under the Vreth assault. Within 6 hours, the Concord defensive line collapsed. The order came from High Command: retreat. Fall back to the secondary positions. Save what forces you can. Commander Thyra was escorting a column of wounded soldiers when she heard the strange report on her communication device. "What do you mean they will not move?" The Concord general was shouting. "Order them to retreat immediately." "Sir, they refuse. The human battalion says they are staying." Thyra felt her blood go cold. She changed course immediately. The humans had been assigned to guard a supply depot. It was not an important position. It was not supposed to see heavy combat. But when the Concord lines fell, the Vreth advance had swept around them. Now they were directly in the path of the enemy. 600 human soldiers against tens of thousands of Vreth. When Thyra arrived at an observation point overlooking the depot, she could not believe what she saw. The humans had dug trenches in the hard ground. They had built walls from broken vehicles and cargo containers. They had planted explosives in the fields in front of their position. And they were not running. The first wave of Vreth came at them like a black tide. Thousands of creatures swarming across the open ground, moving with terrible speed. The humans opened fire. Thura had never heard weapons like theirs. They were loud, so loud that the sound hurt her ears even from a distance. They were not elegant energy weapons. They were crude chemical propulsion devices that threw small metal projectiles at incredible speeds. They called them guns. The first wave of Vreth fell. Hundreds of them, torn apart by metal and fire. But more came behind them. Always more. The battle went on for hours. The humans fought like nothing Thyra had ever seen. They did not panic when the Vreth broke through their outer walls. They pulled back to secondary positions and kept shooting. When they ran out of ammunition, they fought with knives and fists and anything they could grab. Thyra saw a human soldier take a Vreth claw through his leg. He did not scream. He did not fall. He shot the creature in the head, wrapped cloth around his wound. and kept fighting. She saw another human pick up fallen friend and carry him to safety while firing a weapon with one hand. Impossible. No species could do that under such stress. But the humans did it. The wrath kept coming. They were not used to resistance like this. Their hive mind had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never faced a species that simply refused to stop. Night fell. The battle continued in the darkness. The humans used fire and flares to light up the killing ground. They sang songs as they fought, strange rhythmic chants that Thyra did not understand. Their voices rose above the sounds of weapons and dying breath. 14 hours after the battle began, Thyra received a transmission from the human commander on the ground. His name was Captain Marcus Cole. His face was covered in blood and dirt. One of his arms hung limp at his side. But he was smiling. "Commander Velshin," he said, his voice rough but strong. "We are still here. We are not leaving. Captain, you have done more than anyone could ask. Your position is about to be overrun. You must retreat while you still can." Cole laughed. It was a strange sound in the middle of so much death. "Commander, I have 200 soldiers still standing. We have ammunition for another few hours. And there are Vreth in front of us?" His smile faded, replaced by something hard and cold. "We are not going anywhere." Thyra watched as the next wave of Vreth approached the human position. There were more of them than ever before. This would be the end. She was certain. Then something strange happened. The Vreth stopped. They had been advancing without pause for 14 hours. They had thrown themselves at the human lines again and again, accepting massive casualties without hesitation. But now they stopped at the edge of the killing ground. They stood there, thousands of creatures staring at the human position. Thyra did not understand. The hive mind did not hesitate. The hive mind did not feel fear. But the Vreth were afraid. They had lost more soldiers attacking 600 humans than they had lost taking entire Concord worlds. Their bodies were piled so high that they formed walls of their own. And the humans were still there, still fighting, still refusing to die. The Vreth slowly began to pull back. Word spread across the battlefield. The creatures that could not be stopped had been stopped. The Death World soldiers had done the impossible job by morning. The Vreth offensive had stalled across all fronts. Concord forces used the opportunity to regroup. Reinforcements arrived. The tide of the battle began to turn. When Thyra finally reached the human position, she found Captain Cole sitting on a pile of Vreth bodies, drinking water from a container. His soldiers were treating their wounded, counting their dead, reloading their weapons. They had lost almost 400 soldiers. Only 200 remained, but they had held. "Captain," Thyra said softly, "what you did here, it should not have been possible." Cole looked up at her with tired eyes. "Commander, my grandfather used to tell me stories about a battle called Thermopylae. 300 humans held a mountain pass against an army of hundreds of thousands. They all died, but they saved their civilization." He stood up slowly, painfully. "We are not that different from our ancestors. When we decide to hold a line, we hold it." Thyra looked around at the destruction, the bodies, the exhausted soldiers who had fought beyond all limits. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you not run when you had the chance?" Cole thought about this for a moment. "Because someone had to stay, and we decided it would be us." He walked past her, toward his remaining soldiers. Thyra stood alone among the dead, and she finally understood. The galaxy had forgotten what it meant to truly fight. The humans had come to remind them. The recordings spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species in the Concord saw the footage from Atheron Prime. They watched 600 humans hold against tens of thousands of Vreth. They saw soldiers fight with broken bodies. They heard the songs rising above the sounds of battle. They witnessed the moment the unstoppable Vreth hesitated and retreated. The humans had been called myths. Now they became legends. On the Allery homeworld, children began playing games where they pretended to be human soldiers. On Kellic stations, scientists studied every piece of data they could find about Earth and its people. On 100 different worlds, beings who had lost hope began to believe again. The High Council called an emergency meeting. The Prime Speaker stood before the 12 leaders with a troubled expression. "We made a mistake," she said simply. "We underestimated the humans. We placed them in a minor role, and they changed the course of a battle. We must reconsider our approach." Admiral Reyes was invited to address the council. He walked into the chamber with the same calm confidence he always showed. But this time, the council members looked at him differently. There was respect in their eyes now. And fear. "Admiral," the Prime Speaker said, "the Concord owes you a great debt. Your soldiers performed beyond all expectations. We would like to offer humanity a full partnership in this war. Whatever resources you need, whatever position you want, it is yours." Reyes nodded slowly. "Thank you. But I should warn you, the way we fight is different from the Concord. We take risks that other species would not take. We accept casualties that would break your armies. We do things that you might find disturbing. We have seen your methods," an Allery Council member said. "They are brutal. They are effective," Reyes replied. "The Vreth have conquered hundreds of worlds. They have never faced anything like us. They do not know how to fight an enemy that refuses to surrender, refuses to retreat, refuses to die quietly." He paused. "We intend to teach them." Over the next few months, humanity mobilized for war. Earth had never built starships before contacting the Concord. But humans learned fast. They took Concord designs and modified them, making them tougher, more aggressive, more dangerous. Their ships were not elegant. They were ugly, functional, covered in weapons. The Concord engineers called them primitive. The humans called them effective. Human soldiers trained for combat in every environment. They practiced fighting in low gravity and high gravity, in extreme heat and extreme cold, in toxic atmospheres and empty vacuum. Nothing stopped them. They simply adapted and kept going. Dr. Amaro Conquo worked with Concord, scientists to study the Vreth. The hive mind was their greatest strength, allowing millions of Vreth to act as one organism. But it was also a weakness. The hive mind communicates through specific electromagnetic frequencies, Amara explained to a gathering of military commanders. If we can disrupt those frequencies, we can break their coordination. Individual Vreth are not intelligent. Without the hive mind controlling them, they become confused and disorganized. A Kellic officer raised a concern. "We have never been able to generate the right frequencies. The technology required is beyond our capabilities." Amara smiled. "Not beyond ours. Humans have been working with electromagnetic signals for centuries. We call it radio. We have been broadcasting and jamming signals since before we reached space." She activated a hologram showing a complex device. "We have built something we call a mindbreaker. It generates targeted interference that can disrupt Vreth communication within a specific area. The first test of the mindbreaker came during a battle on a moon near the front lines. A Vreth swarm was attacking a Concord outpost. The defenders were about to be overrun when the human ship activated the device. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The Vreth army, which had been moving with perfect coordination, suddenly fell into chaos. Soldiers ran in random directions. Some attacked each other. Some simply stopped moving entirely, their bodies frozen without instructions from the hive mind. The Concord defenders, who had been prepared to die, watched in amazement as the unstoppable enemy tore itself apart. Humanity had found the weakness in the monster. Admiral Reyes called a meeting with the Concord High Command. He stood before holographic maps showing the entire war zone, hundreds of star systems stretching across the galaxy. The Vreth Dominion is vast, he said. We cannot defeat them world by world. It would take centuries. But the hive mind has a center, a nexus core where the primary intelligence lives. Destroy the nexus and the entire Dominion falls. The Concord commanders exchanged worried looks. The nexus core is at the heart of Vreth space, the prime speaker said. It is protected by their largest fleets. No force we have ever sent has come close to reaching it. Most did not survive initial contact. Then we will have to fight our way through. Admiral, that is suicide. Reyes smiled that dangerous smile. The Vreth thought the same thing about Atheron Prime. They were wrong. He pointed at the map. We hit them hard and fast. We used the mind breakers to disrupt their coordination. We pushed through with everything we have. One massive strike directly at their heart. An Allery admiral shook his head. The casualties would be enormous. We would lose half our fleet, maybe more. Yes, Reyes said. His voice was quiet but steady. We would. But we would also end a war that has lasted 300 years. We would save countless worlds that would otherwise fall to the Vreth. We would give the galaxy a future. The chamber was silent. Commander Thura spoke up. She had been standing in the corner, listening. I was at Atheron Prime. I watched humans die for a supply depot that meant nothing to them. They did it because it was the right thing to do. She looked around at the council members. If they are willing to make this sacrifice, the least we can do is stand beside them. The vote took 3 hours. Every species debated, argued, worried about the cost. But in the end, the decision was unanimous. The Concord would follow humanity into the heart of darkness. Admiral Reyes returned to the human fleet with the news. His officers gathered around him, waiting. We have approval, he said. In 2 weeks, we launched the final offensive. Many of us will not survive, but those who fall will be remembered forever. They will be the ones who ended the war. A young captain raised her hand. Admiral, what if we fail? What if the Nexus is too well defended? Reyes considered the question carefully. Then we will have died trying to save the galaxy. That is a death worth having. He looked at each of his officers in turn. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting only for ourselves. Now we fight for everyone. We fight for species we have never met, for worlds we will never see, for children who have not been born yet. This is what we were meant to do. He raised his fist in salute. Prepare for battle. We end this war. The fleet began its preparations. Ships loaded weapons. Soldiers trained for the assault. Engineers worked around the clock to finish the mindbreaker devices. And across the galaxy, beings of a dozen different species watched and waited. The myths from the Death World were going to war. Everything was about to change. The final assault began on a Tuesday. Admiral Jonah Ray stood on the bridge of the Unconquered, the flagship of the human fleet. Around him, thousands of ships waited for his command. Human vessels flew alongside Allori cruisers, Kelix destroyers, and ships from every species in the Concord. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, and they were about to fly into certain death. All ships, this is Admiral Reyes, he said into the communication system. His voice reached every vessel in the fleet. For 300 years, the Vreth have spread across the galaxy. They have destroyed countless worlds. They have killed billions of innocent beings. Today, we end their reign. Today, we take the fight to their heart. He paused. Some of us will not return, but our sacrifice will be remembered. Our names will be spoken for millennia. We are the spearhead that breaks the enemy. Let us make it count. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. They emerged in Vreth space surrounded by enemies. The Vreth had known they were coming. Thousands of ships waited for them, more than anyone had expected. The space around them erupted in weapons fire immediately. The first hour was chaos. Ships exploded on both sides. The Concorde fleet pushed forward, taking terrible losses but refusing to stop. Human vessels flew at the front, drawing enemy fire, clearing paths for the ships behind them. Captain Marcus Cole, the hero of Athron Prime, commanded a strike group of human destroyers. His ship, the Last Stand, led charge after charge into enemy formations. "Keep moving," Cole shouted to his crews. "Do not stop for anything. We push through or we die trying." Around him, ships were dying. But for every human vessel destroyed, 3 Vreth ships went down with it. The humans fought with terrible fury, crashing into enemy formations like battering rams. The mindbreaker devices activated across the battlefield. Vreth ships began to lose coordination. Some crashed into each other. Some stopped firing entirely. The perfect unity of the hive mind was breaking down, but it was not enough. There were too many enemies. The fleet was taking losses faster than they could afford. Admiral Reyes made a decision. "All human vessels, form on me. We are going in." The human ships gathered into a tight formation and accelerated toward the Nexus core. They left the rest of the fleet behind. Diving into the heart of Vreth territory alone, the Vreth sent everything at them. Wave after wave of ships threw themselves at the human formation. The humans did not slow down. When one ship fell, another took its place. They moved like a single organism, fighting and dying together. Commander Thera followed with a small Allery squadron. She had promised to stay close to the humans. She intended to keep that promise. The Nexus core was a massive structure, larger than a planet, surrounded by defensive platforms and orbital weapons. The hive mind lived there, the vast intelligence that controlled billions of Vreth across the galaxy. If they could destroy it, the war would end. The human fleet reached the outer defenses. They were down to less than a quarter of their original strength. Ships fell every minute, but they kept going. Admiral Reyes spoke to his remaining commanders. "We need to get ground forces onto that structure. Our ships cannot get close enough for a direct strike. We have to destroy it from inside." "I will lead the ground team," Captain Cole said immediately. His voice crackled over the communication system from the Last Stand. "Get me to that thing, and I will tear it apart." "You will need support," Thyra said. She had been listening. "I am coming with you." Reyes nodded. "Get it done. We will hold them off as long as we can." The landing craft launched from the surviving ships. They flew through a storm of weapons fire, dodging debris and enemy attacks. Half of them were destroyed before reaching the Nexus, but enough made it through. Cole, Thyra, and 200 soldiers crashed through the outer shell of the Nexus core. They found themselves in a nightmare landscape of flesh and metal. Organic tunnels that pulsed with alien life. The Vreth inside were different from the warriors outside. Smaller and faster, designed to protect the hive mind at all costs. The fighting was brutal. The soldiers moved through the tunnels, clearing every chamber, losing people at every turn. Cole fought at the front, his weapon never stopping, his voice never wavering. Thera was hit during an ambush. A Vreth claw tore through her side, sending her crashing to the ground. Cole grabbed her before she could fall, lifting her onto his shoulder. "Leave me," she gasped. "You cannot carry me and fight." "I can do both," he replied. And he did. They reached the central chamber. The hive mind was there, a massive biological computer that stretched across the entire room. Cables and tubes connected it to the structure around them. This was the brain of the Vreth Dominion. This was their target. The remaining soldiers set their explosives. There were only 50 of them left. Cole set Thyra down against a wall and checked her wound. "You are going to be fine," he told her. "We just need to finish this." Thyra looked at him with her 4 eyes. "How do you do it? How do you keep fighting when everything says you should stop?" Cole thought for a moment. His face was covered in blood and dirt. His body was battered and broken. But his eyes were still bright. "Because someone has to. And we decided it would be us." It was the same thing he had said at Atheron Prime. Thyra understood now. It was not just words. It was the core of what humans were. The explosives were set. Cole gathered his soldiers. "Get the commander to the extraction point," he ordered. "I will trigger the charges manually." "Sir, that is a one-way trip." "I know." Cole smiled. "Tell Admiral Reyes that we finished the job. Tell him to raise a glass for us." Thura wanted to protest, but the soldiers were already lifting her, carrying her toward the exit. She watched Cole walk toward the hive mind, alone. A single human against the intelligence that had conquered a galaxy. The last thing she saw before the tunnel closed behind her was Marcus Cole pressing the detonator. The explosion was visible from space. The Nexus core broke apart in a flash of light, so bright it blinded sensors across the system. The hive mind died in an instant, its connection severed, its control destroyed, and across the galaxy, billions of Reth suddenly found themselves alone. They stopped fighting. They wandered in confusion. Some attacked each other. Most simply stopped moving entirely. Without the hive mind, they were nothing. They could not function, could not think, could not survive. The war that had lasted 300 years ended in a single moment. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Unconquered, watching the chaos among the Vreth forces. His fleet was shattered. Thousands of ships had been lost. Tens of thousands of humans had died. But they had one. The communication system crackled. It was Commander Thera calling from an Allery rescue shuttle. "Admiral," she said. Her voice was weak but clear. "Captain Cole. He did not make it. But he finished the mission. The Nexus is destroyed." Reyes closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. When he spoke, his voice was steady. "He will be remembered. They all will." 1 year later, a ceremony was held at Haven Station. The Galactic Concord was being reformed, rebuilt from the ashes of war. Representatives from every species gathered in the Great Chamber. And for the first time, humans took their seats among them. Commander Thyra had been chosen to speak. She stood before the assembly, her wounds healed, but the scars still visible. 1 year ago, we searched the galaxy for a weapon to save us. We found something better. We found a people. She looked at the human delegation, at Admiral Reyes and Dr. Okonkwo and the soldiers who had survived. They came from a world we thought was impossible. They were a species we believed were myths. And they reminded us what it means to fight. Not for survival. Not for survival. Not for territory. But for each other. She paused, remembering all those who had died. Marcus Cole, the soldiers at Atheron Prime, the thousands who had given everything for the final assault. The humans have a saying. They call it the human spirit. I did not understand what it meant until I watched them refuse to give up, refuse to surrender, refuse to accept defeat. Her voice grew stronger. The Vreth believed that the universe belonged to the strong, that the weak deserved to be conquered. The humans proved them wrong. Strength is not about power. It is about will. It is about standing up when everyone tells you to stay down. The chamber was silent. Every being watched and listened. We called them myths because we could not believe anything could survive their world. But they did more than survive. They thrived. They became something greater. And when the galaxy needed heroes, they answered the call. Thyra raised her hand in the human gesture of salute. To the humans, our allies, our friends, our proof that hope is never lost. The assembly rose as one. Beings of a dozen different species saluted the humans who had saved them all. Admiral Reyes stood among his people. His eyes were wet, but he was smiling. The myths from the Death World had become legends, and the galaxy would never forget them.